Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Multiple Careers podcast. This is episode number 15, and in today's episode, I want to talk about the question of how you can start from rock bottom. And I know that this is a very difficult topic for many people, especially during these very difficult and uncertain times, but because of that, I think it's a very important thing to tackle, because if you are someone who is currently at rock bottom, the last thing that you want to do is just leave things the way they are, not do anything about it, and just accept defeat and spiral down further. And by the way, this podcast episode is in response to a question that one of my dear listeners asked me. He actually asked how you can start a career from rock bottom, because he recently heard in the news that some people have reached an all-time low due to the tough times and uncertain environment. This is definitely a lot to digest. These are indeed very difficult times for many people, and also for many businesses and families, because of this current situation that we're in. Everything has become more uncertain. There have been a lot of layoffs that have been happening, and I've also seen this in my own community, in my own environment. People who are close to me have also been laid off. I've seen friends who got laid off. And the good news, though, is that most of them have recovered, and they have kind of found their way out of that rock bottom situation. Before I continue, there's something really important that I want to talk about, which is the news. So as this listener said, he heard in the news that a lot of people have reached this all-time low because of the tough times and uncertain environment, and that is certainly correct. I do not dispute it at all. I do not dispute that these are indeed tough times, tougher than many times that all of us experienced before. But what I think is really important is that whatever you hear on the news about what's currently happening with the economy, with the job market, take it with a grain of salt. Of course, there are a lot of facts presented about the economy, how bad it's going, inflation, unemployment, and everything. But you always have to keep in mind what the news is doing, what their business is. The news is mostly not in the business of giving you good, positive, inspiring, motivating news, right? They make their livelihood out of presenting news that is very dramatic, that is very alarmist, because that is how they keep their viewers watching the news, because it's exciting, it's fear-inducing, and you feel that if you don't watch the news, then you're gonna miss out on something very important. And in many cases, that's true. I mean, you have to follow some of the news so you have an idea about what's going on in the world. But at some point, it can become too much, and at some point, it can fire back at you in a sense that it puts you in this negative mood, it puts you in this gloomy mood, because then all you can see are the problems and the lack of opportunities and the bad news, right? And again, while you have to be aware of all of that, the problem is that in the end, it doesn't help much, because no matter what is happening in the economy with the job market, after a while, after you know that that's a fact, there's not that much that you can do about it, right? So the only thing that is within your control, the only thing that you can change, adjust, or do something about is actually yourself. And that is one of the perspectives that this podcast, this Multiple Careers podcast has, which is, despite everything that is happening in the world, despite all the suffering and difficulties, what can you as an individual do with yourself, with your skills? How can you make use of all of that to make your career better, to make your life better? So that is what we want to talk about in today's podcast. So if you are someone who is currently at rock bottom, how do you get out of it? How do you climb out of it? And I'm speaking from experience here. I myself have experienced being at rock bottom, not that many times, but definitely more than one time in my life. And yeah, I know exactly how bad it is. When you're at rock bottom, you feel like you do not have any hope. You feel like you don't have an outlook. You feel like things cannot possibly get better because they are so bad. And you might be in that kind of situation right now. You might be in a situation where you got laid off, or there's an impending layoff. You're not laid off yet, but you know that that can happen anytime. Or you happen to have just graduated from university, you just got your degree, and now you're out in the job market looking for a job, and you've been searching and searching, but until now you just haven't found a job yet. It's just so difficult to get a job. And after a few months of trying so hard, you feel that you're at rock bottom. You feel like there's no way out. You've tried everything but nothing works, and you feel that you don't have the energy anymore, and you don't know what to do next, right? But what's very important, what I also want to mention, is that in the midst of all these difficulties, this chaotic situation, there are actually winners. I saw a lot of people. I have many friends who are intelligent, they are bright, they are knowledgeable, experienced, but they may not be necessarily, they're not necessarily geniuses, right? But they were able, in the midst of this situation, they were able to find a job, get employment, and actually get paid very well. So what makes them different from the other people? What makes them different is, I think, is a really, really positive attitude, and not accepting no as an answer. So they just kept on going despite everything that was going on around them. So you too can be a winner in this situation. Although the situation is very tough, very difficult, it doesn't mean that you will stay at rock bottom. There is a possibility that you can get out of there. And also, one very important note about jobs. There is this perception among many people that there's a lot of unemployment, which is due to the fact that there are not enough jobs, that there is a lack of jobs. But very interestingly, that is not the case. If you do a bit more research, if you look beyond the dramatic headlines that say unemployment at all high or whatever, if you research further, you will actually find out that there are a lot of jobs. There are a lot of job vacancies that are not filled. And the proof for that is, to get the proof, you can simply go on either LinkedIn or on numerous other websites, company websites, and see for yourself. There are so many open positions. There are so many companies looking for employees at every level, from senior level, mid-management level, but also at the retail level. I'm sure that you know that currently in the job market, there's a lack of people working in retail. There are so many vacancies, and the companies are actually looking for people to fill those vacancies. So the problem is not a lack of jobs, but the problem is that there's a lack of a matching between the demand of the employees, so the kind of jobs people are looking for, and the kind of jobs that exist. So that is the problem. So if you ask me, is it hard to get a job? I would say no, it's not hard at all. You can get a job tomorrow if you want. But the question is, can you get a job that you really want, that really suits your skills, personality, and everything? And the answer is no. It's not that easy. Maybe it's not that easy at the moment. So maybe for the time being, you need to find a temporary solution. Maybe you cannot get exactly that what you want. You need to find another job first that will be your stepping stone, a job that merely helps you to survive during these difficult times. So now let's get back to the question of rock bottom. So how can you start again from the bottom or rock bottom. And here, I think it's very, very important to make a very clear differentiation. What does it actually mean when you say to start from rock bottom? There are actually two kind of meanings, and I'm not really sure what this listener who posed the question meant, but he might have meant it in both of these ways. So I'm going to talk about both. So one way that you can interpret it, if you say you start from the bottom, is as a fact. So it means that it's actually a fact that you're starting from the bottom. And that can be the case. There are two cases. One, when you've just graduated and you're looking for your first job, then you are actually starting from the bottom. If you have not had any experience in that field before, if you never had a real full-time job before, then you are actually starting at the bottom of the hierarchy. You are the person with the least experience. You are in a way the dumbest person in the room, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that you have the least amount of experience, and it will take some time to work your way up. So that is what it means being at the bottom in terms of it being a fact. And the second possibility is that you are at the bottom because, for example, you have just been laid off. You had a really great job, you were pursuing a career, but then boom, you were laid off and you're out in the nowhere, and you even have financial problems perhaps. You're not able to pay your rent and you go into a bit of debt and so on. And you are actually, in all aspects of your life, you're kind of at the bottom, meaning that you are experiencing some kind of temporary defeat. Your career has been interrupted, you do not have a job, you're perhaps in debt, you do not have money, and maybe because you're working at the home all of the time, you're not on best terms, your relationship with your family, with your spouse, etc. is not going that well. So as a matter of fact, you are actually at the bottom. And if you're at the bottom in that sense, then all that you can do is put in the time and the effort and the patience that it requires to get out of there. And in this case, if you're at the bottom in this sense, as a matter of fact, then you do not have too much to be worried about. And this might surprise you, right? Like, everything's going so bad and you're telling me I shouldn't worry? Like, doesn't make sense. But it does make a lot of sense, because these are all situations that can change, that you can change. They are not permanent situation. No matter how low, how bad your situation is, it can always get better if you put in the work. You might have to put in double the work. If you are looking for a job and you've tried for months and you haven't heard anything back, then you need to put in double of the work. Apply for more jobs. If you've applied for 20 jobs in the last month, now apply for 50 jobs, because that way you can get your resume, your application in front of more people. Or try other ways. Try to make use of your network, your relationships, so you can access those jobs that are perhaps not advertised openly on job search platforms, right? So there are a lot of things that you can do, but of course, you need the patience. You need the patience to work yourself through it one by one. And if you're in a bad financial situation, it's the same thing. You need to work yourself through it step by step. Start by really budgeting, spending less, trying to find other ways to earn money. If you can't get your ideal job in this current situation, try to get any kind of job just so you can bridge this temporary situation. Now, that was the first kind of rock bottom. But there's another kind of rock bottom which is much, much more dangerous and much more insidious. And that is being at rock bottom in a psychological sense. So rock bottom not as a fact that you don't have money, you don't have a job, you don't have so and so on, but it's a psychological state where you feel like you don't have any hope, you feel you're burned out, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're scared, and you're filled with all of these negative feelings, and they're so bad that you feel like it can't get any lower. And I think that this is far, far more dangerous, because while in the first type of rock bottom, where you just see the facts, those are all things that you can change. in a few months from now, your situation can change completely. But in the second type of rock bottom, where it's more of a psychological state, you can stay in that state forever. So it's not a guarantee. It's not totally true when people say when you're at rock bottom, it can only go up. No, it's not necessarily the case. When you're at rock bottom, it cannot go lower than that. But there's also a possibility that you just stay in that situation indefinitely if you don't change anything about it. So what to do about that, right? So the only way, if you want to get out of that psychological state of having the feeling of being at rock bottom, is that you need to change your mindset. There's just no other way. Because you'll not be able to change the physical world around you. You'll not be able to change the hard facts of your situation, not instantly, right? But what you can instantly change is your mindset, your perspective, your paradigm, which is the way that you see and understand the world. So instead of experiencing and seeing the world as this place which is so hostile, where there are no opportunities, where everything is doomed, you need to change your mindset and start looking and acknowledging the vast opportunities that exist outside there, the different things that you can actually do to improve your situation. It might not happen overnight, it will not happen at once, but there are a lot of small things that you can do that will improve your situation. One very, very simple thing is if you've been feeling very depressed in your room because of your situation and you're feeling you're spiraling down, simply by going out twice a day, ideally, I do that, by the way, to take a walk for 15 minutes, half an hour in nature, breathe the fresh air. That is something that can really totally change your mood. And it can help you to spiral it upwards again. So that's just one very small example. Or, for example, you start working on your resume. You take a second look at your resume, and maybe you get a second opinion from someone and tweak it a bit and find ways to make it more attractive to HR people, to hiring people, and so on. So there are a lot of things that you can do and focus on, so you don't focus on all the negative aspects and all of the negative things that are going on in the world right now, but you focus on yourself and all the things that you can do, that you can change. As Stephen Covey in his book The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People said, that you need to focus on what is within your circle of control. I don't remember the exact term he used, but what he meant by that is that I think he said circle of influence. There are things that are within your circle of influence, things that you can affect immediately yourself without having to rely on anyone else, which is your mindset. And then there are things that are outside of your circle of influence that no matter how hard you want to change them, you cannot change them, because they depend on so many factors, and that includes the economy or the current job market and everything. The only thing that you can change is the way you view them, the way you perceive them, your mindset about them. So I want you to start looking at the opportunities and looking at alternatives rather than looking at all of the limitations. And at this point, you might say, oh, that's so easy for you to say. It's not that easy. I mean, the economy, the job market, and the people, and blah, 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 and the lockdown and everything. Yeah, that's all true. But what are you going to do about it? If you sulk and if you just accept that situation, and if you accept being at rock bottom, then you will just spiral downward further, and it will get even more difficult to get out of the situation. So in my opinion, there is no other way than to change your mindset if you want to improve things. There's just no other way. So I hope that this was useful to you. Let me know in the comments below if you are listening to this on YouTube, if you have any questions or what your take on this is. Or also let us know and let me know, and this will be beneficial for others as well. If you've been at rock bottom before in any kind of sense, and what you've done in that situation to improve your situation and get out of it. So that was episode number 15. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again next time.